Imagine waking up on what is supposed to be a serene luxury vacation, only to find that you and, maybe 1,700 other passengers have been abruptly confined to your cabins.
Yeah, a total nightmare scenario.
Right. That was the terrifying reality recently aboard the cruise ship Ambition in France, as a severe gastroenteritis outbreak just swept through the decks. Or consider an even darker scenario, the deadly, unprecedented person-to-person transmission of the Andes hantavirus aboard the Hondios in the South Atlantic.
Which is just staggering. I mean, we aren't just talking about a passing stomach bug here.
No, exactly. This was a crisis that cost 3 passengers their lives because the very architecture of the ship, the recirculated air, shared dining halls, inescapable proximity, it all acted as an accelerant for the pathogen. If you enjoy content like this, please take a moment to like, subscribe, follow, and turn on notifications so you'll always know when new content is released. As a quick update, we continue to monitor the Martin Stevens v. OpenAI matter. It is important to note that this is still not a lawsuit. We remain in a voluntary, quiet period at the request of Martin Stevens to allow time for any potential developments behind the scenes. At the time of this recording, we do not know whether any progress has been made. No settlement discussions or negotiations have been publicly confirmed. We can also report that the dead man switch has not been activated, meaning Martin Stevens remains safe from both a physical and legal standpoint. We will provide updates if circumstances change. So, stepping back into the fray, welcome to the debate.
Welcome, everyone.
Today, we are navigating the escalating public health concerns surrounding cruise ships. The central question we're exploring is this. Are cruise ships uniquely dangerous vectors for infectious diseases, what some are calling modern-day plague ships? Or are they simply highly scrutinized environments where commonplace illnesses are managed through strict, effective public health protocols?
Right.
I will be arguing that cruise ship risks are highly manageable and that current maritime health protocols are working precisely as intended.
And I'll be arguing that modern cruise ships are inherently high-risk environments where our current systems of oversight are, frankly, fundamentally failing to protect passengers from both routine and novel pathogens.
To really understand this, we have to look at the massive surveillance apparatus that surrounds this industry. My perspective is rooted in the fact that cruise ships are arguably the most highly regulated and rigorously monitored environments in the travel sector.
More than aviation?
In terms of health surveillance, absolutely. The perception of danger here is completely skewed by the intensity of the data collection itself. Look at the insights from Sojib Zaman, a health sciences professor at James Madison University. He points out that common viruses like norovirus spread efficiently anywhere you have large crowds.
Right. Airports, concerts, public transit.
Exactly. But unlike a crowded airport terminal, a cruise ship operates under incredibly strict, legally mandated sanitation standards and active mechanical containment.
I hear that, but those standards are reacting to a problem that the ship's environment creates in the first place. You can't just brush off the sheer scale of illness as an artifact of good data collection.
Well, take the Bermuda government's guidelines as an example. The moment gastrointestinal illness hits just 2% of passengers or crew, the ship doesn't just log it. They have to report to the Ministry of Health every 4 hours.
Okay, but reporting isn't prevention.
But when it hits 3%, a massive operational shift kicks in. It's not a polite suggestion. We're talking about locking down self-serve buffets, scrubbing public spaces with hospital-grade bleach protocols, and aggressively isolating sick passengers in their cabins. That is an advanced, active containment system that actually catches disease.
I come at it from a different way, though. That system might sound great on paper, but in practice, these ships are fundamentally flawed, high-risk petri dishes. The recent outbreak on the Hondios wasn't just a mild stomach bug that a locked buffet can solve.
No, it certainly wasn't.
It was the Andes strain of hantavirus. We saw 3 deaths and rare person-to-person transmission of a highly virulent respiratory pathogen. You simply cannot ignore the epidemiological threat of cramming thousands of people into a sealed environment where the HVAC systems continuously push the same air through endless corridors of cabins.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. We have to carefully separate routine, highly manageable illnesses from genuine existential threats.
Okay, but they both thrive in that environment.
Sure, but the vast majority of these outbreaks are standard norovirus cases. If you look at the data, the Caribbean Princess in May 2026 had an attack rate of 4.7% among passengers. The National Geographic Seabird saw 13.6% of its passengers sickened.
Which is a huge chunk of the ship.
It is. And I am not minimizing the severe discomfort of norovirus, but these are standard gastrointestinal events. The Hondius hantavirus case is a tragic statistical outlier.
But that outlier demonstrates the exact vulnerability of the entire system. The threat matrix is evolving. It's not just norovirus anymore.
Well,
Wait, let me finish. We've seen the emergence of the Andes virus, yes, but also multiple E. coli outbreaks on ships like the Oceania Insignia and the Seven Seas Mariner in early 2026. The pathogens are diversifying.
but wait, isn't conflating a remote expedition ship's encounter with hantavirus with a standard Caribbean cruise like comparing a deep-sea submersible failure to a commercial airline flight?
I don't think that's a fair comparison.
I mean, the Hondius was exploring incredibly isolated islands in the South Atlantic, where passengers had direct exposure to wild rodent populations. The risk profiles are entirely different. We can't malign an entire global industry based on one extremely specific exposure event.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. Whether you are on a 100-person remote expedition vessel or a floating city with 5,000 people in the Caribbean, the fundamental architecture of the risk is identical.
Massive passenger density?
Massive passenger density paired with an oversight system that is actively collapsing. If you're listening to this and you've ever been on a cruise, you probably assume the CDC is physically inspecting that buffet line or swabbing the decks, but they aren't.
Well, the CDC still maintains strict guidelines.
Guidelines, yes. But in April 2025, due to staffing and resource cuts by the Department of Health and Human Services, the CDC effectively stopped inspecting cruise ships for cleanliness under the vessel sanitation program.
Right, the physical inspections.
Exactly, those physical, unannounced inspections just vanished. And what happened? We hit a record-breaking 20 gastrointestinal outbreaks in 2025 alone, the highest ever reported, and it coincided exactly with this drop in physical oversight. We are flying blind, relying on these massive corporations to self-report, forcing agencies to remotely monitor outbreaks. Remote monitoring of a biological threat in a high-density environment is a dangerous, gaping vulnerability.
But look at how we know about that record number of outbreaks. The only reason we have that data is because the surveillance net is incredibly aggressive.
Aggressive, but based entirely on corporate self-reporting.
Right, but it's a legal requirement with severe penalties for noncompliance. They don't just wait for people to casually mention they feel ill. The CDC's definition of acute gastroenteritis is essentially a tripwire.
Okay.
If a passenger has 3 loose stools in 24 hours or vomiting paired with a fever, a massive reporting protocol kicks in. They're logging cabin numbers and pulling 72-hour meal histories to find the exact ingredient that started it. The fact that we know exactly how many people got sick on the Star Princess, I think it was 104 passengers and 49 crew members, demonstrates radical transparency.
Transparency after the fact, though. The outbreak already happened.
True, but are we looking at a broken system or just a highly sensitive thermometer? If land-based hotels were legally required to report to the CDC every time 3% of their guests got stomach bugs, wouldn't they look like plague ships too?
That's a compelling argument, and I will concede the point about the sensitive thermometer. The data collection is rigorous when the tripwire is crossed, but your hotel analogy completely breaks down when you consider the physical reality of the environment.
How so?
Because if you get sick at a land-based resort, you can leave. You can drive to a local pharmacy or check into a regional hospital. A hotel does not hold 1,700 people hostage at a port, confined to their rooms, pending medical tests from a local university hospital.
Which is what just happened in Bordeaux.
Exactly. The ambition in France. On a cruise ship, you are locked into a self-contained biosphere. The air, the food, and the water systems are inextricably shared with thousands of other potential hosts. and your only recourse is a ship's medical bay that can be instantly overwhelmed. I think the most accurate way to look at this is through the lens of an excellent piece in The Walrus, which described cruise ships as sentinel chickens of the sea.
I know the metaphor, but let's break that down for the listener.
Right, so in public health, agencies literally place cages of sentinel chickens in areas prone to mosquitoes. They test the chicken's blood regularly, and if the chickens test positive for something like West Nile virus, it acts as an early warning tripwire before human outbreaks happen.
Right.
The Walrus is arguing that cruise ships are our modern sentinel chickens. Because of the sheer density and the closed environment, they accelerate the spread of absolutely anything that makes its way up the gangway. It's a magnifying glass for infectious disease, acting as an early warning system for global contagion.
I appreciate the metaphor, though I would frame it differently. Being a sentinel implies that these ships are passive victims to whatever boards them. What the rigid framework of 4-hour reporting intervals and immediate aggressive isolation protocols shows us is that they are actively managing these environments.
Managed? Maybe, but not prevented.
Yes, cruise ships inherently gather large groups of people, but the risks from common norovirus to the rare anomaly are mapped, tracked, and forcefully contained in ways no other travel sector even attempts.
And yet, we still hit 20 outbreaks in a single year, while physical CDC inspections have ceased. The structural reality of that massive passenger density, combined with the proven ability for these environments to rapidly incubate both routine debilitating illnesses and deadly rare pathogens like the Andes virus, demands that we seriously reevaluate how safe this mode of travel actually is. Self-reporting, no matter how detailed, isn't enough when you're trapped at sea.
Well, we all want to travel, but the tension between that desire and the reality of global infectious disease containment is profound. We have to look at the data critically and ask ourselves, do these numbers point to a failing industry or simply to a travel environment scrutinized more heavily than any hotel or airline on Earth?
Absolutely. There is certainly much more to explore regarding international maritime health regulations and how we adapt them for the future. The question we leave you with is whether we are willing to accept the role of these ships as our modern sentinels of the sea, sounding the alarm only after the passengers are already locked in their cabins.
If you found this episode valuable, please like, subscribe, share, follow, and turn on notifications. It helps us continue bringing you content like this and ensures you never miss future releases.